Welcome to the Hamumu Halloween Home Horror Hoedown, the podcast where we watch scary movies so you don't have to.
From award-winning to completely unknown, we take them all way too seriously.
I'm your host, Mike Hummel.
And I'm your host, Solange Hummel.
Now, warning, we use a ghoulish number of spoilers, so watch the movies first.
Second warning, we don't know anything about anything, so don't take us seriously as we take these movies seriously.
It's the season of terror and madness, which means...
Ooh.
That's not what it means. That's not even words.
What does it mean?
It means we get to go to the theater to catch all the hottest new horror hits. It's the Hamumu horror hit out of the house Hoedown.
I'm going to say that's not what the letters stand for.
You wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know. It's true. It is true that we get to do movie theaters, which means movie theater popcorn, and it means big old sodas full of sugar.
Yeah.
And something that I learned, because we went to the second theater movie, last week I was all, this movie had a lot of sound jump scares.
Yeah.
That's so unique and interesting about this movie. And now I've just realized I am no longer used to watching movies in the movie theater.
It's
and
very
it
loud.
is too loud.
You must be old.
I must be old. Because the number of times that I, whole body spasmed in my chair because of the sound being too abrupt was a non-zero number.
Yeah, there was a one that just fully got me, to the point where my body physically jumped. Mm-hmm. And after it, I'm like, that didn't scare me at all. I just jumped because it was loud.
Mm-hmm. And when we were talking about it afterwards, I realized I am also visually overstimulated by the movie theater. Like the sheer size
screen
of the picture is so much bigger than I'm used to now that I have covered my eyes more during the last two movies than I have probably all year long. And I think it's because it's just so much that it's easier to watch if I'm watching it through the teeny tiny little boxes that my fingers make in front of my eyes.
Well, our listeners should know that if you go watch Smile 2 from 2024 in the theater, you are going to want to cover your eyes because there's not many instances of gore in this movie, but when they happen, they're something to behold.
They really are. This was the second movie this month, I think, that involved someone putting their own hand so far down their own throat that they were halfway to the elbow.
Yeah, this was definitely physically impossible.
Yeah, it was. I mean, because it was all hallucinations.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that. They set that up in advance because this girl had a thing about drinking water, which was that if she ever feels out of control of her life, she's supposed to drink a whole bottle of water and that's supposed to make her feel better. Mm-hmm. But the way she drinks the water is she's like a snake. She just opens up her throat and the water just pours straight in. And that wasn't special effects. That was acting.
Okay, was it acting?
I think.
I was watching so closely by the third time that she did it. I was watching so closely. I'm like, is this really happening? Can she really just down an entire bottle of water into her gullet in 3 seconds?
It was 24 ounces or something.
Or is she looking like she's drinking it and it's pouring I don't know, down a tube into a bucket or something behind her?
It's possible.
Because it was so fast. It almost was, I was like, even if you were to just hold this bottle of water upside down, it wouldn't empty this fast.
That's because she's creating a vacuum and just sucking the water out.
It was a lot. Okay, let's go back.
Oh, we go back to before the water?
Let's set the stage.
It's funny you should say stage.
Why is that funny?
Because Smile 2 is a pop music drama.
Yes, it is.
It's a behind the music about Sky Riley, the world famous pop star, who got in a terrible car accident. And so she was, out of the world for 6 months or something. until she finally, now she's coming back to her tour and trying it again. And it's very difficult.
Smile 2 is also an almost immediate continuation of Smile 1. Yes. So it starts with like a title card that says like 6 days later.
Yeah.
And you are seeing, I think it was the boyfriend of the last girl who died in Smile 1.
I think that is true.
You're seeing him in a car and like he has decided that in order to get rid of the demon that's in him, the parasite or what have you.
We could discuss what that is about.
Yes. In order to get rid of that, though, that he's going to go pass it on to these two, like, drug dealers, like terrible human beings. So I think he was sort of like, I'll just give it to these crappy people and then it's fine. But in order to do that, he had to kill one of them in front of the other one.
Yeah. So this movie is very much, we'll say, homage to The Ring in that there's this magic demon virus. Who knows where it started, but where it is now is that it's in somebody, and for the next 7 days, they get progressively more crazy and hallucinate different things until suddenly they smile real big and kill themselves. And if someone sees them kill themselves, now they have the virus in them.
And they very intentionally do it in front of someone because that's how the parasite is like passed on.
Yeah, it's obviously it wouldn't have evolved this way if it...
Right. But we had learned in the first one that short of killing yourself, you can also kill someone else as long as you do it in front of someone and that parasite gets passed on to the person who watches you do it.
And it has to be horribly violent.
Yes.
It's a trauma thing.
Yes. And if you would like to know more about our theories about how it's a trauma thing, you can go back and listen to our review of Smile 1, which we did at the very beginning of 2023, I believe.
It's the very first episode of 2023, and we listened to it on the way home from the theater, and we went, oh, that's the exact same movie we just watched.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so he, terribly botches his attempt to do this. He ends up accidentally giving the virus to some like low-level drug dealer who then it turns out that he was the dealer who gave Sky Riley her drugs before the accident. Mm-hmm. And now like she's trying to make her comeback and she's trying to stay clean, but also her back hurts because she got all messed up in an accident. And so she's trying to get Vicodin from him.
And nobody will give her Vicodin because she's an addict.
Right. So she happens to be the person who's there when this low-level drug dealer, who was a friend of hers, whatever, reaches his like 7th day and the virus takes him out and she's watching. And so now she has the virus.
Yes. And that's our story, is the next 7 days of her life. And will she get out from under this virus or will it take her down with it?
Right. And much like the first movie, there's a point about, probably either a third or 2/3 of the way through. I think it's probably about 2/3 of the way through, where she decides, she's like, I am going to take control. You are not in control. She tells the virus, I am in control. And we think she has fixed it. She's taken charge. She's doing the things that are going to kill the virus.
Yeah, it makes her stop seeing what she's currently hallucinating.
Yes. And then, surprise, she was never in control at all. She's still under the spell of the virus or the parasite, and she's real crazy. And
which is like, that's literally exactly what happened in the first movie. It's much shorter in the first movie. It's like, there's just like a kind of a, spoilers, kind of a final battle with the virus. And you think she's taken charge, but it turns out that's just an illusion too. And in this one, it's kind of a longer term thing, but it's still same idea.
Well, because it was interesting that that being in charge of herself was really like a life theme for her. Like it wasn't just post this. She was already living this trying to take control of her own mind situation. And then you add this on top of it and, it was that much harder for her.
It was hard.
The other difference is that in the first movie, it was always 1-to-1 to 1-to-1. And in this one, at the end, she is a pop star, right? At the end, the virus is like, haha, you're not really in control. You're still crazy. And she wakes up and she's on stage and she smiles at her entire stadium full of fans. And we don't see this, but I'm pretty sure she uses the microphone to destroy herself.
Yeah, I didn't understand the image we were seeing at the very end. It looked like some weird beetle, but I think that was the microphone.
Well, also, like, it got really surreal at the end of the first one, too, and I had forgotten that. But, like, the virus, once it gets out, and, well, because she's the only one who could see it. The person who is infected is the only one who can see it. And once she could see it, it becomes this, like, huge kind of praying mantis sort of thing.
With no skin.
Yes. And so then I think she kills herself with her shiny gold microphone.
Yeah.
And all of her fans watch her. And so now, like, and that's the end. So has she now
thousands
spread the virus or the parasite to an entire stadium full of people? Because if that's true, the world is over.
It's definitely a problem, but maybe someone will figure out the secret to actually stopping it.
Here's the thing, though. At no point in the, however many iterations that have happened, and we know from the first movie, like, it goes back like 20 different generations, or, it's not generations, but like possessions or whatever. We know that people don't figure out what's going on. They just think that the person that is going crazy.
Yeah.
And so, like, the chances, like, each one of those people is then going to infect other people. Like, the chances that you can stop this, like, wildfire of parasite is very small.
This is my Smile 3 pitch.
Okay.
A group of buddies who all went to this concert, who are all, traumatized by what they've seen, which is the theme of the movie. They are all together in this. They're all having their hallucinations. And so there's a lot of learning going on, and they're doing their research, and they figure it all out together, and they can solve it, and they can stop it.
How do they connect up with every single person who was in that stadium?
They don't eradicate it, but they create the solution of this is how you handle it, and in the future it can be handled. And it's like COVID. It's not gone, but we're dealing with it. We're handling it.
Our hospitals are no longer overwhelmed by it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Speaking of that twist ending, I saw that coming. I mean, she's a pop star.
Yeah. As soon as it was said that she is a pop star, I was like, oh, stadium full of people.
Yeah.
That's not going to be good.
No, it's not. And that kind of made this movie feel pointless. Like, it was, I say this too often, but you have the movie that starts with the monster in existence and ends with the monster in existence. All we've done is watch one person get destroyed by it. And so nothing has really changed. So really, this is more like the cold open to another movie.
I mean, okay, so many. Isn't that because horror is the genre of, like, the futility of life?
That is certainly a theme.
It's making a point about life and how life is, like, nothing changes.
That's a terrible thing.
It's not an uplifting message, but I think that's sort of the point of a lot of horror.
I wonder about that with this movie because it's supposed to be about trauma and cycles of trauma, which, there you go. That's why it doesn't end. But I mean, is that the message you want to give people? It's just, oh, well, you can't do anything about it.
I mean, that was my entire complaint with the first movie was that I was like, oof, this movie is very, very strongly a metaphor for depression and cycles of family trauma. And basically what it is telling you is there's nothing you can do about it. You might as well kill yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do that, you should go kill someone else. Like, it's not a great message.
It's really not.
That being said, okay, and our whole point is that, especially my point on this podcast, is to take everything way too seriously.
It is your job.
So that's what I do with movies, which then kind of makes this not my kind of movie. But if I set that aside, when I watch these movies, and it's been a long time since I saw the first one, but I feel like kind of said this in the first podcast. I definitely feel this way about the second one. If I watch it and I don't think about it. I don't make any connections. I don't make it a metaphor for anything. I just watch it as exactly the story that's being told. Mm-hmm. It's a good story. Like, I thought it was well told. You know, it was a little predictable. Yes. Mm-hmm. But horror movies often are. Like, you generally have one of two endings that's coming at you.
There's two ways it can go.
And this one, there was only one ending that was going to be interesting, right? So I think
there could have been a challenge and she overcame. That's always a good story.
Okay, but that's not what they're doing here, you know?
It's definitely not.
So it was predictable, but I also think, like, I was very interested in this character, Sky Riley, because, like, I wanted to know, how did she get to where she is now? Like, what happened? What led up to the accident? Did she do something? Turns out she did. Like, how good or bad of a person was she prior to all of this? And, like, it was interesting to me that we meet her a year after her lowest point. So we meet her already pretty far into her efforts to, like, better herself and overcome the things, you know, the decisions and the problems and all of that. Like, we meet her pretty far into her character arc. And so I liked her. I wanted her to overcome. I wanted her to win. I wanted her to not. I was very heartbroken for her when everyone around her was like, ugh, she's just being exactly like she always was. And I'm like, she's not. That's not fair. She's trying so hard.
Yeah.
So, like, I thought it was a really good story, as long as I didn't think deeply about it at all.
Yes. What I kept thinking while we were watching this movie was, like, the whole smile thing is kind of dumb and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Although I feel like they worked on that in this movie, that things were more clear, I think, sort of. But I nonetheless was enjoying the movie, watching it, because I was enjoying it as a drama about someone trying to struggle their way through a pop career. Like, that was interesting, all of that stuff. And it wasn't about the monster or anything.
And also, like, yes, there was an actual, like, monster trying to kill her. But to be really honest, like, her mother, and I don't know, like, we don't know how much of her mother's behavior was real and how much of it was what the monster was telling her. But it was very much leaning on the idea that, like, that stage parent who pushes their kid too far because of the fame and money that they get from it. And
they were a business.
Like, yes. And I kept thinking, this could be Taylor Swift. Like, I don't know what Taylor Swift's parents are like. I know, like, her dad is her manager. I don't know what their relationship is. Maybe they're great and he's a wonderful person and he's very compassionate and caring about her and what she needs. But many, many, many times we've heard this story.
We know this story.
Of, you know, Michael Jackson, you know, the Jackson 5, their dad, pushing them all. Often, I think the people who provide us entertainment are broken by the people driving them to continue providing us entertainment because they are the product.
Yeah.
And we as consumers and their management as the purveyors of the product, like, we kind of all forget that this product that we want to sell and want to buy is a whole human being who maybe just isn't capable of doing the thing we're asking them to do.
Okay. I just realized that the word consumers is a super creepy word. And that could be a horror movie title. And it could be so metaphorical about the way we consume our entertainment and our celebrities.
I mean, it's a word that makes sense when we're talking about items that we use. But so many of the things that are consumed these days are human beings for one reason or another. Yeah.
Yeah. And you would think, oh, you're just consuming the product they put out, the entertainment, the movie they made. But no, they are definitely getting consumed. If you see them in action, you can see that they're clearly being consumed.
I think about that a lot, even with TikTok, like, because the social media has created this industry, right? This, like, influencer industry where everyone gets $1 bazillion because they become TikTok famous. They become social media famous, which now is this career path that people want to go on. They see it as like the fun thing that's going to make them all the money that they need. But I think about that, and I think about how many times I have watched people who, particularly on TikTok, but any social media, people who are on social media, how you just watch them flame out at a certain point. Like they're famous. Everyone loves them. And then they do one thing wrong. They say one thing and it all just burns to the ground immediately because of the consumers.
They get consumed in the flames of anger and rage.
And this like entitlement. Like even if it's,
we own them.
Even if it's something as simple as this person who used to feed me content every single day, all day long, is only making videos once a week. The rage that you see from people.
Yeah. That is the entitlement. Yeah. There's a thing on TikTok and other social media where you'll see the creators, they do their videos, they do them way too many. You're like, how are they doing so many videos? And then eventually it comes to a point where they put out a special video where they're like, it's been too much, guys. I can't keep up. I can't do this every day. I've got to take a break for a year and we'll see where it is after that. And they've been consumed. That's the end.
Now, I think that there are probably some influencers and some content creators out there who recognize, like, I think this industry has been around long enough now that I think when you go into it, you have to, if you're going to be successful and you're not going to just be entirely consumed by the audience, you have to go into it with this idea that you're like, this is a short-term career.
Yeah.
This is, you go in, you burn really hard, you make all the money you can, you save it up, and then you bounce out and you go find something else to do because you've got a bunch of money and you've got the money that you need and you let it be at that.
That all sounds very familiar.
Right? But the thing is, I don't know that most people going into this, especially when you're talking about teenagers, they don't understand because they haven't been around long enough to see what the cycle looks like. I don't think they understand that this is a short-term thing. And they go in and they're like, I'm spending all of my money because I'm making all this money. And then it's over and they're like, well, wait.
Which it's funny because do they see anyone on TikTok that's old that they like? No.
Or anyone that's been on TikTok for more than a couple years
they're
consistently.
Like, all these new ones just happen to be the ones I like. And they don't quite catch on. That's all you get.
And that's not even a burnout situation. We also get tired of the thing that we've seen too much of and are suddenly like, that's not interesting anymore. We're moving on to this other thing.
Yes.
It's so fickle.
We will no longer be demure and mindful.
Exactly. Huh.
To get back to the movie we were talking about, there is one moment in this movie which we both talked about coming right out of the theater and we were very excited about. It was the best part of the movie. When Skye is having her latest hallucination and it is all of her backup dancers just standing in her closet staring at her. This goes on for a couple minutes.
But okay, we have to paint the picture for our viewers. They're not just standing there like
I think they were at first, though.
No. They were backup dancer posed. So like some of them are like crouched down and other, like their arms are in weird places and they're like funny angles. And it's like, they all definitely look like dancers. But if like 15 dancers were crammed together in your closet.
Yes.
It was so unsettling.
Oh, I was thinking about a moment later when they're just staring at her. But yes, they're doing that, and she's all scared as she backs away. And every time she looks away, they've kitty cat style jumped forward into new poses, and it's creepy.
My favorite was the one where they were halfway down the hallway, and the one in the front was like starfished out, stopping the rest of them from going forward, and the rest of them were all like pushed up against that one, and they were just like
it's all very dance
wall.
poses.
It was amazing. And then even when they're in the living room, and you're right, they were just standing
in various places,
and then they start like sidestepping, but they all sidestep like in sync, and they do it with like the grace of a dance troupe. Yeah. It's not just that they're taking a step; they're like, I don't know, they're
swooping.
Yes, they're swooping. It was very, very unsettling and upsetting.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was just like an interpretive dance about people creeping on you. That was a lot of fun. So I enjoyed that. What I did not enjoy, however, was classic problem. Talked about this in a recent movie. This movie ends sort of with an "it was all a dream," where basically like half the stuff in the movie is rewound. It didn't happen because it was all hallucinations. That includes things. She murders her own mother. And for a long time, we think that really happened. And she's, running from the cops and all kinds of things. None of that happened. She was fine. And it's like, again, it's like, why did we watch this movie if it didn't happen? I always have a problem with that. So it's tricky because it's a movie about hallucinations. Like that's the whole problem, but you can't just undo the whole movie.
And I think that might be the thing is it was so much of the movie. It was literally like 2/3 of the movie. Honestly, by the end, you think you go back and you're like, I don't think from the point that this guy like bashed his own face in with a weight in front of her, from that point on, I don't think she ever was really in control of herself.
Yeah, right after that, she like calls her friend to come over and hang out with her, and her friend does come over and hang out with her. And we know at the end of the movie that didn't happen. And
right, she gets a phone call
setup for the
from
whole
the
movie.
friend saying, "Sorry, it took me so long to get back to you. I wasn't even sure I was going to call you back." And we're like, oh, what? Aren't you driving the car we're in right now?
Very exciting.
No, Sky was driving the car.
And she didn't know it. That makes me think of something I won't spoil, a different entertainment property. Yeah, so it just bothered me that so much of it was just basically thrown in the trash. It's like it was on the cutting room floor, except we had to watch it.
Yeah. There were highs and lows in this movie.
There were highs and also lows. Let's discuss them.
Ratings.
Smile 2 is pretty much Smile 1. The pop star plot line to it made it more interesting because I found that an interesting plot line all by itself. But I'm still bothered by all the "it was all a dream" and the pointlessness of the ending. And it just kind of feels like just by the nature of the story they're trying to tell, it can't go anywhere. It just kind of defeats itself. Like, for example, we didn't even discuss the intern from House who was helping her to die temporarily so that the virus would leave her. First of all, that never happened. We thought it did, and then it didn't. And second of all, who knows if she ever actually met that guy or if he even existed. So, I mean, that's sort of right there illustrates the problem with this movie. But also, that seemed like, so pointless. Like, that was a whole red herring for no reason. So all of that stuff was really bothersome. Like, it's enjoyable in the moment, but then they pull the rug out from under you and you're not enjoying it anymore. But ultimately, I did have a nice time because I was enjoying the pop star story. And then the pop star story ended with a centipede crawling out of her body to crawl back into her other body. So that was fun. And really, more VH1 Behind the Music should end that way, I think.
Right. With the human body just being the cocoon for some giant
is that
insectoid
what it is?
monster.
The trauma grows inside your body, but then for some reason you have to feed it to yourself.
You metamorphosize into
self-destruction.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. I like that. That's good.
Okay. I didn't know that was good. Overall, it was sort of enjoyable, even though so many flaws to the whole premise. So I'm going to actually put it down slightly from what I gave the first Smile movie. I'll give it 3 creepy fans out of 5.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because I mean, we looked it up. I gave the first one a 3. I really was bothered by the first one. Like, I spent the whole episode of that podcast talking about how bothered I was by that, the premise of that movie and the message behind that movie.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me because it was done in such a way that all I could do was think about the message that they were giving us. And this one, I didn't really get hung up on that until we listened to it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's relevant here too. So they did something different with this second one where it wasn't like so in my face. And I think it was the fact that her story was there was so much to it already that like it distracted me from the fact that it could be a metaphor. And I'm going to score it based on that fact. Like, I really enjoyed watching this movie, and I feel like I didn't feel that way after I watched the first one. Like, I didn't hate the first one, but I didn't afterwards, when I was talking about it, think that was really an interesting movie to watch. I enjoyed that experience. And I actually feel that way about Smile too.
Okay.
Which is funny because I don't think usually sequels to horror movies are better than the originals.
No.
I am a little concerned that they think they've set something up for a third.
Oh, I think they have.
And I don't see that going well for them.
I don't know how that's going to work.
No. But I enjoyed this one. And something we haven't talked about yet, and one of the things that I truly enjoyed, there were several times in this movie when either something was playing in the background, like there was a soundtrack song, or Sky Riley was singing a song, and I was like, I want that song.
Oh.
I want to listen to that song regularly. Like, that's a good song. Like, I want the soundtrack to this movie.
Is this your Donnie Darko soundtrack?
It might be. But I really enjoyed the music, both, just what they used to create the ambiance, but I also enjoyed that actress's voice and, how she performed the few performances that we got to see.
Yeah.
And I thought the songs were, like, lyrically, I also thought the songs were kind of interesting. So, all of that being said, I am going to give this 4 creepy fans out of 5.
It jumped way up.
It really did. I enjoyed this movie.
Yeah. Like I said, I did enjoy it, but I can't rate it too highly because there were fundamental issues for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe our next movie will also be a theater movie.
We have to see what's coming out next week.
Ooh.
I mean, surely something's coming out on Halloween, right?
You would think.
It's got to.
Halloween's not next week, right?
It's coming.
Wait, is Halloween next week?
No.
I'm kind of sad that you didn't say yes, because I was going to say the real horror is how fast time is moving.
It is. And you could make a horror movie about that. That would be interesting.
See, we've come up with 2 interesting horror movie
The
premises.
Consumers.
And well, that's just the Langoliers.
Well, that's what I'm picturing, yeah.
All right. Well, we will be back next week, one way or the other.
We definitely will. It's impossible that we wouldn't.
Bye.
Good day, everyone. Sully's looking it up. I'm narrating her life as she looks it up.
I hate it when you do that.
No, you don't. Do you really hate it? So, she's pushing buttons on her phone.
I do hate it when you do it.